Hey everyone, I'm Ashleigh Banfield and this is Drop Dead Serious, and oh my God, I watch a lot of crime shows, and I think you do too, right? I watch everything, Netflix, Hulu, Peacock, everything. But I just saw Maternal Instinct on Netflix, and best way to summarize this one, it's everything. It's literally every documentary, every crime, every psychopath, every lie, every twisted character that you've ever seen in every documentary, all in one. I'm not kidding. I mean, I was going over it in my head. It's literally Scamanda and Tinder Swindler, and it is Lover Stalker Killer, and it's Dirty John, and it's Unknown Number, and it's Apple Cider Vinegar, and it's Anna Delvey, and it's Worst Roommate Ever. It literally is all of these stories all manifested in one crazy ass woman named Taylor Parker. And if you have seen this incredible series on Netflix, you know what I'm talking about. And I am about to tell you what you don't know, why they do it and how they do it, how they keep it straight, why they live these lives. Because honestly, like George Costanza in Seinfeld, I used to say he works so hard at not working, it would be easier to work. These people work so hard at lying and keeping an incredible web of lies straight, it would be easier just to live the truth. So why? Why do they do it? Well, in a minute, you're going to hear from somebody who knows the answers to that, because she lives this life. Literally, Dr. Casey Jordan lives the life of understanding the criminal mind. So in a moment, Dr. Casey Jordan is going to join me and actually break down the whys and the hows that someone like Taylor Parker can even exist and carry out her extraordinary cultural crimes and then legal crimes as well. And I'm also going to ask her, how do you get from just somebody who's like an Olympic level liar to a Dahmer style killer? How do you jump that far? She's got an answer for that too. So before I go into all that, I want to break down a little bit about this case, because even if you just saw it, literally there's so many things I have forgotten after just hours of having seen it, because there's so much crime that this woman commits. Again, cultural crimes, moral crimes, legal crimes, that just when you think you kind of figured it out, you remember, oh shit, I forgot she did that too. So I just want to break down a couple of those things so that when I get into the conversation with Dr. Jordan, you won't miss a beat. So there are lies and liars, and there are people who live double lives, and there are people who fake illnesses, and there are people who fake money and fake identities and invent fake people and fake entire fantasy lives online, and somehow they manage to drag everybody around them into this mass delusion, right? And then there is Taylor Renee Parker. Taylor Renee Parker, and I almost barf in my mouth a little bit when I mention her name. She's a Texas woman who didn't just lie about her life and about her money and about her friends and about her condition. She lied about being pregnant and built an entire cottage industry of lies around being pregnant. A fake silicone baby bump, fake ultrasounds grabbed online, fake doctor's appointments, full-blown gender reveals, maternity shoots, fake inheritance, a fake multi-million-dollar future ranch, and a boyfriend that she was desperately trying to hang on to. A really nice guy, like a super sweet guy, who was being wound around her fat little fake finger. And oh my God, how far she took this is, well, let's just say there's no Netflix doc or any doc up until now that's been able to show a person like Taylor Parker before. And really, that's just the tip of her filthy, jagged iceberg. But as if that con itself of being pregnant isn't already jaw-dropping enough, you can throw a little dash of murder into this one as well, and not just any murder. The most vile and sadistic butchery of a murder. Murdering a pregnant woman and then playing doctor to cut the fetus out of that woman, and not just a woman, a friend. So fetal abduction to the nth degree, on top of, like I said, every Netflix documentary about lies and the lying liars that tell them. So Taylor Parker, if you've seen the doc, if you haven't seen the doc, she was from East Texas. And by the time she met Wade Griffin, the man she would later claim to be, having a baby with, she had already had 2 children from previous relationships, children that she did not even have custody of. She wasn't raising them, really wasn't even seeing them, right? And as you know, Taylor faked an entire pregnancy with Wade. But before we get to that fake pregnancy, you got to understand that Taylor Parker's relationship with Wade Griffin started based on just a whole septic field of lies, right? When Taylor started dating sweet Wade, she told Wade that she came from big money, oil money, Texas oil money, family royalty money. And Wade and his family believed her, because why not, right? Why would someone lie about that stuff? Taylor wound Wade into this false sense of reality that they should be out looking for property, right? Just, to set up their lives together. Not just little property. Like, I think the first one started around $4 million. And by the time they were wound into, some kind of fantasy life of real estate shopping, they were upwards of around $20 million. And these are like really modest hog farmers from East Texas, right? So this is kind of like jaw-dropping numbers that just didn't seem real. But Taylor, none of this was a problem. She had so much money coming to her from all these rich relatives in the oil business. There was always a problem, though, when it came to Taylor being able to execute all the deals, right? There was always a delay. There was always some reason that the millions weren't available yet. It was always some sort of paperwork hiccup. And while Taylor was spinning her story about being an heiress in the making, Wade and his family were being pulled into this whole world financially. Wade was out buying equipment for the farm and vehicles connected to the life that Taylor was building for them and promising him. They bought a side-by-side. They bought a heavy-duty truck. And then this was kind of the real icing on the cake. Taylor, I guess while trying to ingratiate herself with Wade's mom, decided to buy her a car. Isn't that nice? She bought her a Nissan Altima, right? Free car. Here you go. Courtesy of me and all the money that's coming to me. It wasn't like a week before that car had to be moved over to Wade's driveway because it's got a recall. Yeah, that's it. It needs to be towed away for a recall. But when Wade's mom actually called on it, it was horseshit. It was being repoed because it wasn't paid for. So, Wade's mom starts to smell a bit of a rat. And Taylor wasn't the only person promulgating these lies to Wade and Wade's mom and Wade's friends and all the other ancillary characters in Wade's life. They were actually getting reinforcements of Taylor's lies from banks and attorneys and Taylor's family members and people in the oil and gas business and real estate contacts. All of these people in Taylor's life were contacting the people in Wade's life, or at least that's what those people believed, right? Wade's friends and family believed that the contact they were getting, the media, the digital messages that were coming from banks and oilmen and all the rest, and family members of Taylor, they believed those to be true. Because how and why would you think otherwise, right? But the reason that the money was always delayed, the reason that the paperwork was always messy, that nothing ever seemed to land cleanly, was because Taylor's mom was the problem. That's what Taylor told everybody. My mom is holding up everything. Taylor didn't just fake, I'm pregnant to her boyfriend, Wade. She decided she wanted to make a big thing about it, as all good liars do, right? And insisted that they have a big gender reveal party. And she co-opted Wade's friends to organize a big gender reveal party. It's not just enough to lie. You got to make the lie giant and enjoy it. And that wasn't the only thing she had faked, because it turned out she wasn't even capable of having a baby. Years prior, she'd had a full hysterectomy. Could not get pregnant ever, ever again. Not just tubes tied, full hysterectomy. And the reason that this came to be known eventually was because she had friends who knew. And those friends came out of the woodwork once social media started showing a gender reveal and a baby on the way for a woman who couldn't have a baby. A woman they'd cut from their lives long ago because of her lies before. Turns out Taylor didn't just tell people about her condition once. She told people about her condition many times. And the last condition she had was cancer. Scamanda, hello? Oh, and not just cancer. A stroke. And MS. And I don't know, untold other illnesses that she exhausted her friends over. Meantime, looking fabulous on all her social media. I think most of those friends finally came to realize this girl ain't sick. She's nuts. And they cut ties with her until, of course, they start seeing the babies on the way from a woman who had a hysterectomy. So in order to keep the lie going, she orders the silicone baby bump and wears it around. And again, with the social media, right? Celebrating the fact that look at me, look at me. She gets the fake ultrasounds. She orders them up online. Fake doctor's reports, orders them up online, makes a few mistakes along the way. And ultimately, there are those who start to smell a rat and they begin to fall away, but not Wade. They try to warn him. Right? Mom tries to warn him like that car was bullshit. That wasn't a free gift. That was a fake car. It wasn't paid for and it got towed and repoed. The friends are like, I think we're hearing from other friends of hers that she's not able to have a baby. She's had a hysterectomy. Wade said it's all a big lie. Her mother, Taylor's mother, orchestrates all the lies and problems. It's not Taylor. Taylor is telling the truth. Everybody else is lying because her mom is creating the lies. So poor Wade is still all wound up in her web, right? Even though family and friends are falling off. And all the while, Taylor's supposed to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the due date approaches. And as the due date approaches, there are others who know she's lying, like folks in the hospital who know that woman had a hysterectomy and cannot have a baby. But they can't say anything because of HIPAA laws. They're not allowed to disclose that Taylor Parker had a hysterectomy and therefore cannot possibly be pregnant. They have to, even though it's killing them to do so. They know she's winding these people up with her big lying belly and they can't say anything about it. And as she gets closer and closer to her due date, a lot of people who know she's lying are thinking, what's she going to do? How is she suddenly going to face the idea that she's reached 40 weeks of pregnancy? And the drama builds, right? Up until her due date. And then the due date comes and goes, and she's still pregnant. And she stays pregnant for weeks after her due date. So now shit's getting real for Taylor, right? Shit's getting so real, she's got to produce a baby or produce some other kind of story because she's wound everybody up that this baby's arriving, and now she's just overdue. Taylor, I guess, decides at some point along the way that her out clause for not having a baby in that belly. And P.S., she's already said to Wade, don't touch me. I don't want you to touch me. I don't want you to look at me. That's how she's gotten away with being with him for all this time and him not knowing the baby isn't real, that the belly isn't real. Her plan now is she sets her sight on a poor, unsuspecting young woman named Reagan Simmons Hancock. How does she meet Reagan? Well, Taylor fashions herself a photographer and she gets the gig to photograph Reagan's wedding. And wouldn't you know, she inserts herself into everybody in Reagan's life at the wedding, becomes almost like one of the bridesmaids, and becomes a really, really good friend to Reagan during her pregnancy. Oh, isn't it great they're pregnant together? This is going to be great. We're having our babies together. Only Reagan's really pregnant and Taylor ain't. And so Taylor winds up an entire plan on one day where she sends her husband off on a hog mission, which is a lie, and she tells Reagan to be in her home by herself at one particular point in time. So it's 7:30 in the morning on October 9th in 2020. Reagan gets a visit from her friend Taylor, and suddenly Reagan is attacked and stabbed violently and her baby is cut from her womb by Taylor, her friend. The crime is horrifying. It is bloody. It is sick. It is sadistic. It is painful. This poor expectant mother loses her life, and that baby is stolen from her womb. And wouldn't you know it, Taylor makes off with the baby in her car on her lap. And a trooper follows her. Unbelievable. But as this trooper's behind her, Taylor's crafting another line, calling 911 to say, help me, I've just given birth and I'm racing to the hospital and there's a trooper behind me. Right? Plausible storytelling while the trooper comes up. And from that moment, it is absolutely spellbinding. Just the incredible line that Taylor tells the troopers and the EMS and the hospital staff, like, this little bundle of brand new baby with the umbilical cord, this is my baby. I've had it in the car. Help. Only Taylor probably wasn't smart enough to realize that science is real. And science proved that Taylor didn't have a baby.
What's wrong, ma'am?
I had my baby and I'm trying to get to Idabel Hospital.
Idabel?
Yeah, my husband's up there.
Why aren't you going to St. Michael's or somewhere?
We're going to Idabel. It's where my doctor is. I need to get up there.
She's in there. She refuses to have a vaginal check to make sure she's not hemorrhaging. They've done an ultrasound and HCG, and it doesn't show that she's been pregnant. Okay. They have the placenta.
Where's she?
She is in the room. She
You're
is
not letting her leave.
No. She is in the room.
Yeah, science can really tell whether you've had a baby or not. Lots of things happen to your body. Any one of you out there who's had one, you know. If you know, you know. And the police show up at the hospital because they now have wind of the murder that's happened down the way. Reagan's been murdered, and her brand new expectant baby girl, Braxlin, has been stolen from her womb. Here's Taylor in the hospital with a little baby girl who is now pronounced dead at the hospital. Braxlin did not survive this horror. How could she? And there's Taylor continuing to wind everyone up. This is my baby. Even when pressed, how did you get this baby? Did you give birth yourself to this baby? Take a look.
Here's the Taylor, here's the deal. I'm just going to be up front with you. I've been talking to the DA down in Bowie County, and they've been working on a case down there. And we know that you had a hysterectomy sometime back, and that you claimed to be pregnant for a while, but that you really weren't. So we're trying to figure out where this baby came from. But you didn't give birth this morning.
What do you mean?
That's what I just said. You didn't give birth this morning. And we want to know where this baby came from. That's why I'm here. So what happened?
I just told y'all what happened.
Okay. What's the doctor going to find when he comes in and checks you? Is he going to find you just gave birth? They can tell. When he looks, he can tell in about a second if you gave birth or not.
Oh, okay.
So is he going to find that you gave birth this morning?
Yes.
Okay. He'll be here. But the information I've got is you've had a hysterectomy in the past, and if you had a hysterectomy, you can't be pregnant. And you came into a hospital with a newborn. We want to know where this newborn came from.
Oh. Okay.
So you still saying it came from you?
Yes.
Okay. Because we can do DNA on it and be able to tell pretty quick.
So you gave birth to this child?
Yes.
If there's anything you need to talk to us about, you can.
I don't know what everybody wants me to talk about.
Taylor, we found the woman this morning on the side of the road, and her baby had been removed from her body. And then you show up with a baby, and the information is you've had a hysterectomy. There's no way you could have been pregnant, even though you've been telling people for a while you've been pregnant. There's no way you could have been pregnant. And
I didn't hurt anybody on the side of the road.
well, I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying that there's a woman that had her baby removed from her body. Her body's found on the side of the road. I didn't say you did. I just want to know what happened, where this baby came from. Doctor's going to be here in a minute.
Who is the lady? Do you know who she is?
I don't know what lady you're talking about.
Okay.
She doesn't look like she had a baby.
It doesn't?
No,
Okay.
does not look like she had a baby there. Down there.
I didn't kill anybody.
Where'd this baby come from? We're past all of that. Taylor, we're past that.
I did not kill anybody. I didn't kill anybody.
So was she alive when you left?
I wasn't with her. It's mine.
Can't be. Can't be.
So, yeah, it wouldn't take long before everybody in the hospital knew, the doctor knew, the police who showed up, they knew, and Taylor Parker was arrested. Like literally right there in the hospital gown, she is cuffed and she is walked to the car and she is put in the back of the cruiser.
You're gonna be under arrest, okay? And you know that. But you've got to understand, we're not here to hurt you, okay? All right. I'm gonna have to cuff you, okay? All right. Okay.
Can you grab this sticky deal that's scratching me?
What?
There's a sticky
Honey, go ahead and get in. Watch your toes. Yes.
Taylor is charged with capital murder and kidnapping. And I mean, yes, I get it. There's like an encyclopedia of other charges that she could have been charged with, but ultimately she was convicted of that capital murder. And in November of 2022, she was put on trial and she was sentenced to death. So, yeah, shit got real for Taylor Parker at the end of that rope that she strung herself up with. She's now on Texas death row. And her conviction and her death sentence were challenged on appeal. That's natural. But the courts have upheld it, all of it. And in May of 2026, the United States Supreme Court said, too bad. Tough luck, tough cookies. So as she awaits execution, and I don't know how long that's going to take. Usually it can, I mean, listen, Darlie Routier's been on Texas death row for 30 years, right? But as she awaits execution, it leaves all of us to sort of absorb this unbearable mountain of lies and crime and horror and try to make sense of like, what kind of person can do that? And dear God, how many of them are out there? And so for that, I turned to Dr. Casey Jordan, criminologist extraordinaire, attorney, and host of the podcast Criminal Appeal. Here's my conversation with Casey. Quick note from my sponsor. I think if you know me, you probably know my puppy dog Atlas, who I lost in November. I may not personally have a cat because I had Atlas, but I know a lot of you do have cats. And if your kitty cat runs the house the way most cats do, then you already know. They are not just pets. They are tiny little dictators with whiskers. And if you're going to serve your little ruler dinner every night, it probably shouldn't be a bowl of processed mystery meat. And that is where Smalls comes in. Smalls makes fresh cat food with protein-packed recipes, preservative-free, 100% human-grade ingredients, the kind you would actually recognize from your own fridge. And cat parents are noticing the difference. After switching to Smalls, 88% reported overall health improvements, like better digestion and more energy, softer coats, shinier fur, fewer hairballs, and my favorite one, less stinky litter boxes. So try Smalls and give your cat food that actually looks like food. For a limited time, because you are a Drop Dead Serious listener, you get 60% off your first order. Hello! And free shipping. It doesn't end. And then guess what? Free treats for life. Just head to smalls.com/DDS. That's 60% off your first order plus free shipping and treats for life. Free when you head to smalls.com/DDS. Your tiny little ruler will thank you. Casey, good to talk to you. When I finished watching Maternal Instinct, I thought, I can't keep my head on straight with the number of crimes, moral and legal, that this woman committed. I have to talk to Casey Jordan, and I wondered what your initial impression was of this story.
Well, first of all, these are very rare crimes, but when they happen, they definitely make the news. And, you know, I've been covering them. I've been teaching college since 1988, and I was like, I have covered at least a dozen of these for live news over the last 25 or 30 years. And I had to look it up to just confirm. Since 1987, there have been 21 of these. This one might become the most infamous or notorious because of the Netflix doc. But the psychology behind this is textbook. And I know we're going to dig into that, but these hysterical pregnancies, false pregnancies, followed by this need to perform. We must present a baby or we're going to be called out in the lie. The web of lies is what's most interesting to me in terms of the forensic psychology. The horror of it needs to kind of take a back seat because the families who lose these mothers and babies, there's just no description for losing somebody like that. But trying to get inside the mind of a woman who could do this, that's what's fascinating.
And then there's so many layers here. And just to be clear, when you say you've covered that number of cases like this, there's a number of cases within this case, but the one you're referring to is the women who attack other pregnant women and actually butcher them to get the babies. That's what you're referring to in the sheer numbers,
Yes.
right?
So since 1987, we have 21 documented that we know of murders of pregnant women for the sole purpose of cutting that fetus, that baby, from the uterus and taking it and passing it off as the murderer's own baby. This always comes on the heels of her pretending to have been pregnant for, 6 to 9 months and having to eventually present a baby or be caught in her lies. So the murder by itself is horrific. And we're going to talk about the one, of course, with Taylor Parker today. But just know this may be the first one you've heard of, but it's the 21st one in the last 30-odd years.
It's astounding. And so I want to get to it, and I want to get to the psychology of what it takes for someone to cross that Rubicon and commit that kind of just sick and twisted crime. But before I get there, I want to talk about all the other twisted psychology that we were taken through with Maternal Instinct, starting with the kind of person Taylor Parker is, in that lying is in her DNA. It is so small to her to lie small, medium, and big. Take me there to start with the kind of person that is willing to live this way and twist everyone up around her into this like web of lies.
So she is a compulsive liar to the point where she was really estranged from her family. She lies when she doesn't even need to lie. She just confabulates when there's no real reason to even cover anything up. It's almost like she lives in a fantasy world. Now, sometimes when we look at compulsive liars, it's very much wrapped up in borderline personality disorders, people who like to create storms, people who like to have attention on them at all times. But where does it come from? Sometimes we have found that in early childhood, they were abused and tried to alert adults but didn't perhaps even have the vocabulary to explain what was happening to them. But they tried to say, so-and-so is abusing me, hurting me, and they were not believed. They were called a liar. And so from then on, in this young child's mind, and we don't have any evidence that this happened with Taylor, but I'm just trying to could this have happened? They're like, no one believes me when I tell the truth, so I might as well lie. Lies, truth, nobody believes me anyway, so I might as well just have fun with it. And this is their way of overcoming a sense of abandonment by people who didn't believe them from a young age. Now, I think in abandonment, and I wish we knew so much more about Taylor Parker's background, is underlying theme that we see in the women who do this.
You just tweaked a thought for me, which was if they tried to get someone to believe them with the truth and it didn't work, and thus they layered all sorts of extra detail and suddenly got traction with that as little kids. And again, not saying that happened with Taylor, just trying to figure out what could possibly motivate someone to be like this. That sounds like it makes sense. Like as a little kid, if the truth didn't work, but then the lie did, then you stick with what works.
Then you have, if you will, operant conditioning, reinforcement, positive reinforcement. Because usually when the lies happen, even if everyone knows that the little kid is lying, they get attention. And even if the attention is negative, why are you lying? Why do you make stuff up? What's wrong with you? At least they're getting attention, which very often didn't happen. Again, we have no evidence whatsoever that Taylor Parker was abused, but these are the sorts of things we see in what evolves into a very narcissistic personality disorder. Remember, narcissism is obviously couched in deep, deep insecurity. We don't know where that deep insecurity came from, but it seemed to be endemic to Taylor Parker's life, according to her mother, her sisters, from a very young age. She was just lying and attention-seeking always.
So in this particular documentary, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is every Netflix documentary I've ever watched about every psycho liar and every kind of horror criminal all in one person, which I think is why it's sticking with me so much. And I wondered, how hard is it to be that big a liar? Meaning, how hard is it to keep track of every lie to every different person? And isn't that itself, like, ultimately, doesn't it eat you alive?
It would a normal person, except for a person who is role-playing all the time, it becomes second nature because they're not even themselves. They're always in acting mode, always. You don't even know who they are after a while because it's almost like self-brainwashing. Now, I don't know, there's so many things, you're right. I kept thinking Inventing Anna, Anna Sorkin, right? The con artist. Or, it doesn't have to be female, Tinder swindler. Who are these people who create these completely alternative personas, go out saying they're going to buy real estate? The real estate thing was like, I'll bet she got that from Inventing Anna. Just like, I want to feel important, so I'm going to go buy a $20 million ranch, right? And again, this is a disempowered, deeply insecure person who's role-playing. But just like, I don't know, actors can actually get so into their role that they need to be deprogrammed when the movie is over, I call this the pseudologia fantastica. It's actually a psychological term. It is where you self-brainwash yourself, play the alternative reality through your head so many times as a movie reel that you actually incorporate it as your truth, to the point where you could pass a polygraph. And this truth is your new truth. You are convincing everyone around you. It is like Academy Award-winning acting. And that is because you actually believe this is true. A person with a huge, if you will, void or vacuum in their life from abandonment, from never being believed, from never feeling loved, will take on this role to feel important. And a few different things popped up in this, and that is that her friends also said she was also always sick. So that just kind of pinged for me. This is attention seeking. If there's no attention, she's going to cause a storm or tell a lie to get some attention.
I'm going to get to the sickness in a hot minute, but I want to dovetail off what you just said, and that is that they believe their own lies, because it's often been said that it's very, very hard to remember all your lies. But it sounds to me like the way you explain it, once you believe this to be the truth, it's actually quite easy to keep track of it all.
Yeah, she stepped into character, and everything she says it's a lie, she believes is truth. And you're right. If you never lie, you don't have to remember what you said. But she is keeping track of it, and she is doubling down every time she's called out. And you know what pinged for me with that was, remember Casey Anthony from 15 years ago? She had this, of course, had this huge lie about working at Universal Studios and being there on that day. And the investigators are following her into Universal Studios. Her employee pass doesn't work, but the investigators are like, let us in anyway. Just, and security's like,
they're
if you
walking
say
through the desks.
Walking through, you remember this, walking through the entire facility till she literally gets to the end of a hallway and her back is against the wall and she can't show them her office, and she turns around and puts her hands in her pockets and goes, all right, you got me. I mean, that is literally how Taylor is in the hospital room. She is lying until they tell her there's nowhere else for you to go.
Yeah, that uterus didn't have a baby, period.
Nope, uterus never had a baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's talk about the illness that you just touched on, and that is, again, I have to keep track of all the things that happened in Maternal Instinct because there are literally like 10 different stories that I've seen in all these other Netflix docs, and the faking illnesses is just one track. So her friends, former friends, told the audience that she had faked having cancer and MS and had a stroke, and I think I'm forgetting something. But to me, that's like, why don't people like this understand that thou dost protest too much is actually real? Once you start adding so much on, people will cease to believe you. If you add too many lies and add too much detail, it doesn't work. Why would she not realize you can't have all those illnesses and still be walking around and looking like you do?
And yet she was. Okay, not just Scamanda. Okay, it's like you say, every Netflix doc.
Every one of them.
However, we live in a society and a culture. Okay, I've got to say social media, I think, contributed to a lot of this because we all know the presentation on social media is fake. It's whatever you want to design it. It's completely curated, if you will. And yet, it's totally fine to lie about yourself online. No one ever calls you out. It's considered rude to do that. And that is transferred into real life. We just find that it's rude to call people out. You don't confront people. And you don't do it online, now you're not doing it in real life. And now someone's in front of you, and one of the things that comes out very early in the documentary, spoiler alert, she's had a hysterectomy. She can't be pregnant. Half of her friends know this, and yet they're just kind of like, you know what? If her boyfriend is dumb enough to believe her,
that's on him.
That's on him. And people gave him anonymous tips, and he still wanted to stand by his woman. It's heartbreaking.
Well, I'm getting to that too. By the way, that's a whole other psychology I'm going to ask you about.
But we as a society allow the scams to happen by not calling them out and not holding people accountable for it.
So interesting that she did overkill with the illnesses, and ultimately those girls pulled away. That's how she lost her friends, because they thought, I smell a rat, this doesn't work, she's full of shit, and they moved on. And you would think that somebody who goes through this and realizes it doesn't work would be chastened, not to screw up again with too many lies. And yet she moved on to Wade Griffin and piled on all of these different lies on top of each other. So I guess that's the question. She's learned from the mistake, and still it didn't have any effect.
She learned that it paid. She learned that nothing bad happened to her. She may not have, I don't know, like Scamanda made hundreds of thousands of dollars by pretending to have cancer and MS, but she got the attention that she wanted at the time in the moment, and no one ever called her out. So you lose friendships. That's okay. There's plenty of more people out there that you can con and get new and fresh attention from. So in some ways, it wasn't really so much positive reinforcement, but the attention that she was getting made her think, all right, I can just make up lies all day long. And the worst thing that happens is somebody rolls their eyes and walks away. It's
Big
worth
deal.
it.
They were expendable anyway. Actually, you just might have answered a question for me, because since I finished watching and by the way, binged it start to finish, was up all night. But since I finished watching it, I came away with, why? What was the point? Like, Wade Griffin was a nice guy, but it's not like he was, ready for the fireman calendar. And it's not like he had hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not like he lived, in the Taj Mahal. I couldn't understand what was the end goal for this girl to target him and go to the lengths that she did. And I think you might have just answered the question. It had nothing to do with money or real estate or, shiny things. It literally was just the attention.
Attention. And his appeal to her was his sweet, honest, good nature, good old country boy gullibility, right? Yeah. And, she charmed him. I was impressed. She was out there, chasing hogs with him and putting dinner on the table and doing her fair share of the farm work. Mm-hmm. And, she was getting the attention and love from him that she was craving, right? And at some point, though, she didn't have a life. He's out there working long, 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 long hours. But other than being kind of pioneer woman, she doesn't have a life of her own. So she needs to create drama. Well, I'm getting an inheritance. Let's go buy a $3 million ranch, a $20 million ranch. My mother has disowned me, but my grandmother has money. And this is her way of keeping him on the hook, lest he find out that there's nothing there under the surface except a compulsive liar.
Yeah, well, and then I think about it like she is bored making dinner and, cleaning up after Wade every time he comes home, whatever. So you're right. She goes and creates this whole real estate story. And what happens? They have a celebration party about the real estate and she's the center of attention. Then the next lie is, I'm pregnant. And what happens? They have a celebration party in which there's a gender reveal and she's at the center of that. And you're right. It seems to be that everything she spun was so that there could be one big community outpouring about it.
Yes. And I remember seeing some of that amazing family gathering footage. Maybe it was at Christmas, and somebody's got their camera on her, and she's talking all about the real estate deal.
In the middle of the room.
In the middle of the room, and she knows the camera is on her. Now, any logical person would be like, I'd better change the subject because I'm being recorded in a lie. She doubles down. She's going on in all these details because she has the movie reel going on in her head. Now, the thing is, at the end of the real estate deal, she knows she can't perform, but she will take it to the end of the line, like Casey Anthony at the end of the hallway, before going, oh, I've been disinherited, so sorry, things have to fall through. She's had a ton of fun in the meantime. But a pregnancy, you can't just say, oh, something got canceled. You got to perform at the end of that and either have a miscarriage or present a baby. So as time was ticking, the pressure was on for her.
I'm actually surprised now that we sort of are going down this vein. I'm actually surprised that she chose to go down the sick and twisted murderer route. I did not see that coming. Instead of saying, oh my God, I went to term, I was 2 weeks overdue, everything went sideways, I lost the baby. Now we need a funeral with me crying in the middle of it. I wonder why that didn't happen instead.
Well, it certainly has happened with a lot of other false pregnancies. That's the way they usually end, is by faking, saying that the baby was born, sorry, nobody was around. This has happened dozens of times that I've studied and read about. Well, what happened to the fetus? What happened to the, I just put it in a shoebox and buried it in the backyard, and gave it a little funeral. There's no point in getting the authorities involved, I'm up grieving. And so I would say I don't want to give odds of like 90%, but the bottom line is almost all false pregnancies come with either being called out and admitting you're lying or telling another lie about a miscarriage. And but again, and we have 21 cases in the last 29 years, she is going to present a newborn baby as her own. And in a few of these cases, it's actually worked for several weeks before the truth has been revealed. In this particular case, the baby didn't survive.
And I wonder if the baby did survive, that she would have been able to get away with it. I doubt it. But
Wade was so believing in her that it's possible that she would have convinced him. No one else, but he wanted it to be true.
I'm getting to that in a moment too, because I am so wound up about those who believe so much so that they're willing to cut their families away. That's coming. But not before I bring in the notion of HIPAA. When I came to the United States over 3 decades ago, HIPAA seemed to be kind of this new thing where everything was secret with regard to your medical information and history. And it seems to have, I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, it seems to have given way for these people to be able to ply their trade just so much easier. You can just get a fake document from a fake medical website and no one is allowed to question it. You saw those doctors saying, we saw what was happening. There was nothing we could do about it.
Because they're afraid of being sued by this woman who clearly has psychological issues to start with. So I'm on your team. HIPAA is perhaps the number one reason that we have things like Scamanda, people getting away with completely false illnesses just to raise money online. I happen to believe that it's completely related also to killer nurses, killer healthcare givers, like these Angels of Mercy, Charles Cullen and Kristen Gilbert, who had killed more than 50 patients, right? But we can't get access to those patient records to find the actual patterns. I am on your team with this, Ashleigh. I actually think there has to be an escape hatch with HIPAA, kind of like mandated reporters, where if a psychologist can break confidentiality if they believe that there's a danger to their patient or others.
Right.
I think that we need to broaden that escape hatch to apply to healthcare providers and not just psychiatrists.
If they believe maybe there's an additional crime that's being committed in some way, and that crime can actually be fraud, just some kind of a fraud upon that other family, because that family technically is buying all those gifts and it's all in bad faith. And so I agree, but I can't imagine that ever happening. But boy, would that ever put these people in check.
It would. And, it's really, you think about what the victim's family has gone through.
Ugh.
That could have been, I think, to a huge part avoided if the healthcare providers who knew she was scamming, knew she couldn't be pregnant, were able to call authorities and go, I need to put you on alert, okay? And without telling...
Trust your gut. That's all they were allowed to say. Trust your gut. That was it.
That's what she said, and at least that confirmed what the family and friends were thinking, but it didn't give them any leverage with law enforcement to do anything about it. Right. So, again, with a hysterical pregnancy or a false pregnancy, there's only two ways that can end. The lie is revealed, or a mother and baby are killed. So, to me...
Or a baby is stolen.
Or a baby is stolen, but most often they die. So, to me, there's just a false pregnancy is like a huge red flag that a bad, violent crime is going to happen.
This message is sponsored by Raycon. If you are still trying to figure out what to get the dad in your life for Father's Day, I got you covered. Raycon's essential open earbuds have been a total game changer for me personally, and honestly, they feel like they were made for dads. Whether he's out walking or working in the yard, running errands, or just always on the move, these are earbuds he's actually going to use. I've been using these pretty much every day since I got them, whether I'm running errands or just working from home. They're super lightweight. The flexible ear hook actually stays in place. And with 36 hours of battery life, with the charging case, I am only charging them maybe once a week. Plus, Raycon has over 3 million customers, great sound without the crazy price tag, and a 30-day guarantee. Upgrade your dad's everyday routine. Go to buyraycon.com/BanfieldOpen to get 15% off. And check the link below. Thanks, Raycon, for sponsoring. And actually, you just hit on another, there was so much in this documentary, I actually forgot about this element that the doctors put the maternity ward on red alert because they worried a baby would be stolen from the maternity ward.
And it does happen sometimes that they steal the babies, but I have to tell you, in the last 25 years, hospitals have created really great security. And that's kind of the irony, that it's almost impossible to steal a baby from a maternity ward or a neonatal. Just because they have alarms on them, even parents can barely get in there, and for all the right reasons. And yet, we can lock down the babies in the hospital, but we can't do anything to protect the pregnant women from a predator.
You just reminded me of how when I had my babies 20 and 19 years ago, they had matching wristbands with mine. And even that for me wasn't enough. I remember saying, no, I want the bassinet beside me. Because the nurses said, well, you're going to need your sleep. You might want the baby in the maternity area where the nurses will watch him. And hell no, I'm not letting that baby out of the room. I had him right beside me, both of them each time.
But the con artistry of Taylor Parker was epic, and it was her life's theme. It didn't just pop up in her mid-20s. It had been going on her whole life.
So to that end, let's talk about those who are victimized by her. Clearly, it appears her family had enough, and she'd been washed clean of them. They'd been washed clean of her, and the others to me, believed for so long in the face of bald-faced lies, in the face of being confronted, almost like the Nexium cult, right? I bring that one into this story too, because they were given warnings and still believed. What is it about us, and say, sweet Wade Griffin, that his best friend and his own mother have said, you need to shut this down, and he just didn't? What does it say about us and our willingness to allow ourselves to be wrapped up in these unbearable lies in the face of so much, evidence otherwise?
Well, it was a very symbiotic relationship, if you will, right? She is a con artist who is like a heat-seeking missile looking for the perfect guy to pull this off with, right? Mm-hmm. And he has a heart of gold, looking for a country pioneer wife, and she just fits the bill. So, as you say, he's not a candidate for the fireman's calendar, but my God, he's the sweetest guy. Yeah. You can see it in the documentary. And he was just his good heart. I mean, isn't it always that the victims of con artists are the most trusting? We believe the best in people, and we can't fault him for just believing the best in her. But also, he believed that she was pregnant with his kid, and he didn't have any kids. And funny, at the end, she says he wasn't excited about it, but he was. Yeah. He was looking.
He never really loved her, and he wasn't excited about the baby. I sort of was wound up about that because he cut his friends away, he cut his mom away, based on this woman and the baby.
And the most heartbreaking thing, when the police are they're interviewing Wade to find out what he might have known and how could he not have seen this coming when everyone else did. He just puts his head in his hands and he goes, my mom told me, everyone told me, but I stood by her. In other words, he thought it was the honorable thing for him to do, to stand by his girlfriend, to believe her above all else, that was like the pinnacle of love. And we should not fault him for believing the best in her. He was just bamboozled by a supreme con artist.
Although, it's interesting looking back now, I'm surprised there was no talk of a wedding, because who's the star of a wedding? The bride. And there she is going to have a baby. So I'm surprised that she hadn't orchestrated some sort of big wedding. But I guess maybe he didn't propose, or maybe when they talked about it, he wasn't on board.
But I think that's why she orchestrated the fake pregnancy, was to get that proposal.
Yeah.
And didn't happen. So, there's a lot going on there with the dynamics. The gender reveal, she's caught with a typo. I hadn't realized until I did a little background research on her that she had actually worked in an OBGYN clinic at one point, which is probably how she got documents that she was, faking on Photoshop.
The knowledge.
Yeah. So, and not to involve the children in this, but one of the most important things that people need to know is she already had 2 children. I kept
waiting for that to be a lie too. I kept thinking,
we want to protect those kids,
right?
But so we don't want to.
Those kids are with her family, and that's the leverage she had against her mother. You got my kid, but I'm gonna blow the whistle and take that baby away from you if you blow the whistle on my lying, which was just the most unbearable psychology and cruelty.
It is, and the abandonment, right? Here's a girl who abandons her daughter and gives her to her mother to raise, has a boy with her next husband, gives up custody of him, lets him raise it. It's not like she couldn't have children and she didn't want to raise her kids. So we can look at the fact that after the second child was born, she had that hysterectomy, because most women who do this cannot bear children. But most of them also have not had a child in the past.
Right.
So if you want to have children, raise the 2 that you've already given birth to. But she's not interested in that. Every single thing that she does is disposable. As soon as the thrill is gone, she's on for the next con.
She wants the party that goes along with the thing that creates work. The wedding, you're a fairy tale princess, but the work, eek. And then the baby, you get a gender reveal party, but a baby, I see that.
And then a long slog of child raising. So she wanted all of the attention, but none of the responsibility.
Hey, talk to me a little bit about and again, this is yet another whole element of a whole other Netflix documentary, and that is creating the text messages to yourself, to others from other people, creating a number of different phones, having the physical accoutrement to be able to continue this web of, digital lies. I'm brought back to, which one is it? Stalker, killer, lover, killer, stalker, which was also a web of digital lies. Like, that's part of this story too. It's a lot to do that.
Catfish in a barrel. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone who's catfished is believing the texts and the emails of the person who's sending them. I mean, listen, she thinks she has to be evidence-based, which is why she's doing all the texts, which is why she's creating, letters that she's showing to people that is confirming that this, baby is a girl. It's
her full-time job. Like, she's not just throwing lies out.
But what other job does she have?
She's got an administrative job of keeping digital, cultural, physical, medical lies all, in one big vault.
It's a full-time job, and she's good at it, and she's probably not good at anything else in her life. I mean, I'm not mocking her and saying she didn't have a life. She was a good rancher's girlfriend. She pulled her own weight. They established that. But that gets old really quick. Yeah. She doesn't want to be known for putting dinner on the table. She wants to, get all that attention. Again, she wasn't getting a wedding, so she had to have a gender reveal party. And then she's, the footage in this particular documentary, from the chest cam footage of the officers that pull her over on the highway and are there in that hospital room, is priceless. Yeah. You will see a supreme con artist in the throes of pseudologia fantastica, getting all the way to the end of the hallway going, but I had the baby. Yes, I did. That's my baby. I mean, she has to know the jig is up at some point, but she's not going to do it until literally her back is against a gurney or a wall.
Yeah, to hell with medicine. And that's sort of a delight for us, isn't it? When you see someone who thinks they're smarter than the rest of us, who finally are outmatched, and you see the moment when that happens. And so we all feel like, well, thank God that there's someone in a cape, some hero to save the day and stop this madness. But, I wonder if you can tell me, just from your perspective, the escalation. Like, every kid tells a little white lie. I didn't take the cookie, but the escalation from those lies to the web of lies, to the psyche, like the psychosis of lies that takes you to murder and mutilation. I mean, this took her to Jeffrey Dahmer minus a little degree. Talk to me about the escalation, because we never really see that in these documentaries. We see one or we see the other, but we don't see the entire rainbow of it.
Right, and what I would give my eye teeth to interview her family and find out more about her childhood. I did read one quote from her brother who said that their father was a womanizer and a carouser and would abandon the family and go out and drink and, see other women. And that I just feel that that's where Taylor's sense of abandonment came from, was her father's cheating on the mother and leaving the family alone while he was out partying. So I think it may have stemmed from that. That's the only evidence I have. But think of this as a journey of 1,000 steps, where there are 1,000 opportunities to call out the liar, and it doesn't happen. And the reason it very often doesn't happen, because I've had a few people with antisocial personality in my life, and I got to tell you, I'm guilty of it too. What you don't want to do when you think that somebody might actually be on the road to being a psychopath, okay, which goes from narcissism. It's all part of APD, antisocial personality disorder. But first the vanity, then the attention seeking, then we have the narcissism, then we kind of come up with sociopathy, and then it can actually go to full-blown psychopathy, which I would argue you have to be at a certain point to cut a baby out of a womb. They're not all
You're
psychopaths.
there.
Don't
You're
think
there.
that they're in the throes of psychosis. Here's the thing. At 1,000 points to that point at age 27, she should have been called out and confronted, but it didn't happen. There were no consequences to her lying. She always landed on her feet. Nothing bad was ever happening to her. So the family abandons her. She gets new family. She gets new husband. She gets new friends. And we live in a culture where we just walk away instead of doing the confrontation. And I know you're going, I'm not up for that. No, who among us is? But that usually would shut it down. For somebody to say in that in a big family gathering at that Christmas party when she's going on about their $20 million ranch she's going to buy, somebody goes, you know you don't have $20 million. You know, why are you lying? But instead, you've got 50 people all gathered around nodding, maybe rolling their eyes a little bit. But we have got to learn, and there is a healthy and safe way to do that, because you're afraid that if you humiliate them, they will turn on you. The reason we don't call them out is because we're afraid of them. We're afraid of what they're capable of doing. We have an inner voice that says, don't call her out, man. This girl could be capable of violence. She will sabotage my life, get me fired from my job. So we just walk in the other direction. So that is my long-winded answer, Ashleigh, is how did she get to the point where she is cutting a baby out of her friend's belly? It's because nobody called her out along the way, and nobody warned everyone else. I mean, they tried. But again, Taylor knew how to get the people in her web who were gullible, trusting, and boy, did she know how to perform like Meryl Streep level acting.
She ever. I see how people can incrementally, become more criminal, and I can almost see how somebody incrementally can go from liar to killer. But to jump from somebody who's never had a violent tendency before, certainly never been physically sadistic, mentally sadistic, sure, to jump from that to murderer, butcher, and pain-inflicting murder. I mean, this poor victim died in the saddest and most cruel and painful way. This is what I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand how she could just cross that Rubicon so quickly and so easily.
Because she had painted herself into a corner. And again, in those 1,000 steps of lies that she got away with without consequences was just calcifying her. Think of that every time she got away and no one called her out as another layer of reinforcement that's hardening her shell. And it gets thicker and thicker and thicker because she believes she can get away with any of it. Nothing ever happened. Now she has created a lie. And also there's a sense of needing to perform because she knows that there are people who disbelieve her, right? Mm-hmm. I think if more people believed that she was pregnant, but only Wade did for the most part, she needed to present a baby to Wade because he believed her. For all the other people who didn't believe her, she could have lied and said, I had a miscarriage. But for Wade, she can't get away with it. Remember, he's complaining to his friends that they haven't had sex for 4 months. He won't let her touch. He's getting closer to knowing. He is the one person that she still has on a hook. And she knows that if she's going to keep that man, she has to present him with a baby. She had painted herself in that corner and she just was like, then she went on this search. Remember the bomb scare she did at the hospital and the fire she set? Okay. No, really, this is a quick sidebar here. At Quinnipiac University, where I went to law school, some girl had been like bilking her parents out of tuition money, and she was supposed to graduate on a particular day, but she hadn't been to school for a year. Her parents were there, and she created a bomb scare at graduation so that she could get out of her lie of because she couldn't graduate that day. I mean, there are certain people who tell such fantastical lies that they will go to any lengths to protect the fact that they've been lying.
Yeah,
and
this one's weird though. I got to say, I the bomb scare, terrible. Yeah,
Really
terrible and
terrible.
horrible. But oh my God, researching the C-section, like knowing this is not, oh God, I'm in a psychosis and I need to complete this task, and you're here and I'm going to kill you and take the baby. This is, I'm going to plan to do a C-section on my friend. I'm going to have my the baby daddy off on a mission that day. I'm going to have this friend alone and isolated that day. It was the most orchestrated and premeditated sadistic killing on top of the most bizarre and fantastical set of lies. I still can't get my head around it.
Yes, but all of that planning without any exit strategy, without any, I mean, come on. Do you really think that no one's going to find this dead woman with her baby carved out of her and not go looking for you with your newborn baby? I mean,
just miles away. Yeah.
She had no exit plan for what happens after she gets the baby. There was no logic to this. And that is because she has been thinking fast on her feet, and boy, is she good at it, with her lies for so long that she thinks she can always lie her way out of everything.
It works.
And it's a house of cards that everyone else can see collapsing, but not her. Because again, she's never been held with her feet to the fire for lying.
So talk to me about that. The fact that everyone else can see it. So Wade loses his best friend and her wife and his wife because they've been trying to get through to him. His own mother has thrown the red flag warnings and he's cutting her away. About those people who see what's going on and do what they can. I think there's a lot of viewers who watch that documentary and wonder, what would I do? Like, what degree would I be willing to go to stop someone I love from having that happen to them? And why do people stop? Why do they just eventually cut ties and say, you got to do you?
Because it's incredibly painful to do, and when you do that confrontation, you might lose them forever. You, the interventionist, are afraid of losing them forever. But to answer your question, Ashleigh, you stage an intervention just like you see on A&E, just like you do with drug and alcohol addicts, because the common denominator is denial. The victim, Wade, is in a deep sense of denial. And he's got to have his own abandonment issues where he's so happy to have her and he's afraid she's going to leave him. So he's going to go along with this.
Hey,
what
listen,
do you do?
No kidding. And the dating pool in far east Texas, they're right almost on the Arkansas border, I want to say, is pretty damn thin. And Taylor, at least on, Instagram, is pretty hot. I think in real life, not quite what she presents to be on her social media.
With
but
those filters, for sure. But
yeah,
I grew up in Oklahoma, and I get that rancher culture, and it can be hard to find somebody who wants to live that life with you.
Very.
So...
Especially someone that pretty, I mean, he probably felt like the gods rained down on him when she landed in his lap.
So. And listen, she could wrestle hogs and cook a good casserole. And I'm not making fun of her. No. She really did represent everything he had been looking for.
Yeah, she played the part really well. I wanted to ask about playing the part because we talked a lot about the things that could lead someone to be like this. But deep down, I also wonder, are people just born bad? Like, are there some who are just born that way? Like Taylor, no matter what, look, lots of people have parents who've cheated and split and all sorts of terrible things that have happened in their lives, and they've gone on to lead very healthy futures. But I just wonder if there's something innate and in her DNA that makes her like that.
Well, biological theories of crime are very controversial and unpopular these days, but yes, most of the literature on psychopathy really does suggest that there is this X factor that allows somebody to become a psychopath that they are born with, that you're born with just, we call it the bad seed syndrome, right? Without an ability to have respect for other people's suffering, and it's not even, and you can graduate to the point where you have not only do not feel guilt or remorse, but actually enjoy sadistically other people's suffering. But that usually comes with the bad seed, biological, combined with abuse, which is, as you know, social or environmental. Those two things come together, yes, you're going to get a psychopath. And I would say Taylor Parker is a really good contender for that. There was something off about her even when she was young, according to her family.
I think about John Evander Cooey. That was the guy who grabbed Jessica Lunsford from her bed just a few trailers over and kept her in his trailer, raping and murdering this 9-year-old girl and burying her alive. That's how he murdered her. And his IQ was so low, he was borderline couldn't be tried for the death penalty. He was using coloring books at the defense table, and it wasn't an act. And then we found out about his abuse when he was a kid. First of all, he had, he was so challenged mentally to start with, but then his mother's boyfriend beat the living hell out of him, crushing his head against a wall with a door multiple times. They actually showed his brain and the damage. And I started to wonder, wow, that really did seem like a perfect storm. Somebody who was already damaged at birth and then just over and over and over again abused by this boyfriend of his mother. And I guess we don't have a lot of appetite for that as a society.
Well, we don't. I would like to think that we can get to a level of understanding. None of it is an excuse, but to delve into the explanation of how people like Cooey come to be, or Aileen Wuornos, right? I happen to believe, and I don't care what people think on the death penalty, for it or against it, I do believe that as a society, that when we have people who become violent, horrifically so, because they slipped through the cracks when society should have helped them as children and they were horrifically abused, yes, we hold them accountable for their crimes. But I actually think they should get a pass with regard to the death penalty, because that just layers more societal abuse onto them. I mean,
Yeah.
you would argue, well, we got to put the mad dogs down. And I think that's why Taylor Parker got the death penalty. Unless we get some evidence that she was horrifically abused as a child, she's not getting a pass. They basically say, you may have been born a bad seed, but you've been given every opportunity in the world to overcome this, and still you choose to do the wrong thing. I mean, even after she was apprehended and they go back to her house, she's telling wild stories. She's lying. I would be so interested in knowing more about her childhood and her background before she had that first baby at 17. I'd really like to know.
Me too, because I often wonder what it takes for someone to sell their family under the bus, and what she did. And again, it's a whole other element of a Netflix doc. She faked her family's crimes. She faked that her mother was crazy. She faked that her mom sended text messages cutting her from the will and doing all these things. And when confronted, the mom's response was, I was waiting for when you were going to call me. We've suffered with this kid forever. But what does it take for someone like Taylor to not only leave the family, but then use the family and twist the family into their own benefit?
This is why I'm wondering if, I'm very curious about that father that the brother mentioned in an interview, I think, with Oxygen. Just the father wasn't there, and he was a cheater and a drinker and treated the family badly. I really think there's something there to uncover, because if there was abuse, maybe from the father, maybe from somebody else on Taylor as a young child, and she felt unprotected by her family, that she told them that something bad happened to her, they didn't believe her. Again, this is all a hypothetical.
Right.
That could have not only turned her into a liar, but into a vindictive daughter, sister, who's like,
I'll show you.
I'll show you. Yeah, you think you said I didn't suffer. Here's some suffering for you. How do you like me now?
It's interesting you say that, because the truth is, at this stage, there's no way of knowing. Because if Taylor were going to open up in an interview with you or in an interview with me, you couldn't trust anything that comes out of her mouth. Even if she decided, I think I'm going to share everything with society and let you know, study my brain, here it is. There's no way of feeling safe with anything she says.
You're absolutely correct. And I once asked a good friend of mine who's a psychiatrist who actually had dealt with psychopaths who are untreatable. She told me that there is this really horrible moment when you realize your client is a psychopath, and you are afraid to, they'll see it on your face, kind of Hannibal Lecter style, right? They know that I know, because she said the moment you realize they're a psychopath, if they can see that on your face, this is the most dangerous moment for you. They could actually kill you. She said, but the only thing you can do with somebody who is truly sociopathic or a true psychopath, which are rare, far more rare than we think, is to just say, you know what, I understand why you have created this protective shell because of the horrible things that happened to you as a child. But you don't have to do it anymore. You're an adult. You can let that go now. Yeah, you actually have the power to choose not to be antisocial. It worked for you. You were a genius. You were brilliant. Like, praise them. Praise the narcissism. Yeah. And then give them an escape hatch where they can save face by saying, it worked beautifully for you. Look at you. You're so successful. You're an industrial psychopath leading a huge CEO company, blah, blah, blah. But now you're so powerful, you don't have to do it. Why don't we choose something else? That is your only hope of getting it to reverse. And it's really unusual that they will make that choice. Otherwise, this psychopath in your family is there for life, and what you do is distance yourself from them because you're afraid of them.
I really wonder what little fiefdom she's set up in prison on death row, because there's not many women on Texas death row, right? Not many to manipulate, but there's guards, and there are, there are those she comes into contact with in her little tiny world now, and I wonder if she's continuing this.
We're not hearing much from her. It's not like Mackenzie from The Crash who's milking it. And do understand, just like child molesters are dealt with a certain way in men's prison, women who do a crime, like Taylor Parker, they're dealt with a certain way. To kill a mother and a baby and carve it up, she's got to sleep with one eye open. So I don't think let's just say I think her narcissism has been put in check, because she is afraid for the first time for her physical safety in that prison.
And I don't think anybody feels one lick of sympathy for her. Dr. Casey Jordan, my God, I could talk to you for hours. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, it's always great to be here, Ashleigh. Thanks for inviting me.
So there you have it. My great thanks to Casey Jordan. My God, she always is able to get me off the ledge. Well, at least enough off the ledge, because after finishing Maternal Instinct, I was just so unsettled. I don't know how you felt about it, but I was so unsettled at the number of different kinds of criminal were all wound into this one girl, Taylor Parker. And I keep looking out the windows and wondering how many Taylor Parkers are out there, and will my path ever intersect with theirs other than on a podcast? Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, truth isn't just serious, it's drop dead serious.